It is a pleasure to be joined by Erik and AJ of Teal Town USA. Known them for a long time. Gentlemen, how you doing today?
It's a bummer that the offseason has begun, but it's the excitement during this whole summer experience is going to be quite interesting if you're a Sharks fan.
I feel like the summer is equally important, AJ, if not even more important than the season we actually just watched, if it really does play out that way.
Well, just so many changes I feel are going to be coming, particularly on the blue line. So I look forward to what this offseason brings.
Erik, let me ask you this because I feel like you have a good grasp on the historical context of the Sharks. As we look back at Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton, it's never to say that Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini are going to achieve what 12 and 19 did and numbers up in the rafters. That's ridiculous right now. But at least from a starting point and who those players lived with this year and how they kind of handle and go about their business, there is kind of that striking similarity, at least right here and right now.
You could totally see it. I'm just waiting for, Macklin to go, "Hey, bud, how you doing, bud?" With it. But
fortunately, he wears all of his clothes during interviews. Macklin doesn't follow suit to his landlord, former landlord.
But hey, it's just a start. We never know, I'm kidding. But it's nice to see them get off the groundwork and learning from guys what they were living with. Patty and Jumbo. And in addition to throw in Tyler Toffoli, their sleepover mate on the road.
Right. No, it's a good chemistry going on. And I think, AJ, as we look back, 365 days ago, basically around this time last year, we did not know the Sharks would be drafting first. We did not know who would be added to their team. We didn't know that Will and Macklin would be a package deal. We didn't know Tyler Toffoli would be on the team. How we are right now is so different than about a year ago.
Is there a question in there?
I mean, do you feel like that's an accurate assessment? And I say that because last year there were a lot of questions. I feel like there still are questions, but there's more direction to go along with those questions now.
Yeah, I would say I feel like we weren't able to say that there was light at the end of the tunnel a season ago. Now I feel like there is a direction. But again, now that you've got these pieces in place, whether it's Celebrini and Smith and Toffoli and Eklund, but also what you hopefully have in the pipeline, whether it's a guy like Musty or Chernyshov or Beasted,
Cagnoni, Dickinson,
go
on and on. McMadulin, yep.
There's a lot of, I think, things to be hopeful for on the front end. Again, my biggest concern is the blue line. Askarov, as long as he can be healthy, that's a big question mark. But for me, I could see just a complete overhaul of the blue line between this past season and next season.
Yeah, definitely without the puck is where the Sharks, I think, maybe struggled the most this past season. They could score goals at times, but not being able to stop opponents just kind of knocked them out of some games. I want to ask each of you this, and I hope it's understood where I'm trying to get with this. Obviously, we can see the focal points of the team. 71, 72, 73, 2. Who are the under-the-radar players that we're not talking about enough on the Sharks? If there's a Sharks sleeper, Erik, who is your Sharks sleeper? Not sleepover, sleeper.
I mean, veteran-wise, you look at Alex Wennberg. I thought he had a pretty solid year after he struggled with some injuries. I know you mentioned Eklund, but at the same time, I think Celebrini and Smith definitely got that look a little bit and kind of put Eklund in distraction. Or Eklund, excuse me, let me try it again. Eklund as a I lost my train of thought. Just the spotlight wasn't on William Eklund right off the get-go.
Sure.
And I think that opened him up to do a lot more things throughout the year. But you look at like Mika Madulin, you look at Cagnoni, who I'm hoping is going to flourish for the Barracuda.
Yeah. I know, and I think AJ too. Cagnoni's one for me that a guy that there's so much upside, and there are a whole other layer of players here. I think that's my point in asking this question. It's easy to fixate and focus on the obvious ones, AJ, who's your sleeper right now?
Thompson.
Oh, okay. Jack Thompson.
Yeah. I like, I'm not expecting him to play top 2 minutes, but
Okay.
I think he could be a solid 5'6" guy to slot in there as a pair. I really like Cagnoni. Will his size translate? It remains to be seen. I know Dan Boyle is a big proponent of his.
Of course.
Yeah.
Have to be.
Yeah. So those two guys, they make it real easy to root for them.
We've seen enough seasons, Erik, to know that the last couple years they would start with maybe a little less expectations, right? Understanding of the process and rebuilding and tearing down. And even this year, like after you trade Blackwood and Granlund and CC and Zetterlund, like how do you expect the team to do at the end versus the beginning? I do feel like, though, and we can talk about free agency in just a second, that after this summer going into next year, for the first time in several years, there's going to be a little tangible need to jump here, right? There's going to be an expectation next year. How do you even start to see that? We don't know who's going to be there, but how do you start to see that?
Right. You look at how this team has played throughout the year. Yes, there was a 1-win improvement over 23-24, but you definitely see the groundworks. You see the chemistry, as we mentioned before, but you look at, okay, this is what we actually need. We don't need, it's not like a whole, we need all kinds of things. Now it's like, okay, now we know exactly where we need to go for in free agency or a trade or in the draft. There's certain needs that this team can get, and I think that's huge going into, along with what you have built so far in the Sharks and with the Barracuda, and then who do you have outside the organization right now? There's that direction, like AJ was mentioning. It just was, we weren't seeing that a year ago. Now you're seeing it. And now you can start taking flight and going for it.
AJ, I feel like I'm pretty sure that you guys have been around long enough that in 2014, spring of 14, you might have said some bad things about Tyler Toffoli. He was a bad man on the LA Kings and how that series went. Who would have thought, right? After all these years, now he's a Shark. And my goodness, people really love themselves some Tyler Toffoli this year. And granted, scoring 30 goals for a third straight season will do that. And taking on the role of Uncle Tyler will do that. But crazy how things come, I don't even want to say full circle, but a 180 like that.
But don't the Sharks have a little bit of a history with stories like that? Whether it's a Raffi Torres, just welcoming a Jody Shelley.
Yeah.
Just guys that come in that you're like,
Brian Campbell. Oh no, that didn't end up like that.
yeah. I kind of went a little different.
We went way old school on that reference. No, to your point, that there is a little precedent of that. I just thought it was cool.
I mean, you have to enjoy the story. The way that I could totally imagine, to your point, to over 10 years ago, Sharks fans not being real happy with him. And then you see the way he just slides right in here and fits seamlessly and kind of takes the reins, whether, because Couture isn't available, then you lose Granlund, who was kind of a little bit of a de facto captain. So, I mean, I think really felt that leadership. It just, I don't know, it just seems so natural. And then you look at what's going on with him and his wife, how they kind of have adopted basically everybody on the team. So it's been great.
Pretty soon you're going to see Remendo over there getting free meals at the Toffoli house. Just kidding. Nobody would adopt Drew. Randy would adopt Drew before anybody else did. All right. Last thing.
Sure Randy has an extra doghouse.
I think he's in his own doghouse. We mentioned leadership and Toffoli and what he's done there. And AJ, you and I have talked about this, so maybe I'll begin with Erik and then I'll have you finish up, AJ. But Erik, in terms of a captain, we've been around to see several different iterations and versions and people that have worked. And I don't know if that helps us understand what the Sharks are going to do. I just know this. There's multiple different options. I can see how all of them would work to some degree, maybe some better than others. But on the outside looking in, this is kind of a fun conversation to have to figure out how should this go. How do you see that?
It is a fun conversation. I know we've had it on a couple of times right after Logan
Yeah.
uh, was moving on from playing hockey, I guess we'll call it. I mean, there's one I think myself and AJ both agree on, and I think, that would be like a guy like Tyler Toffoli to do it. Or do you go with, you know, with the Celebrini, or, a kid who, you in the eyes of Landeskog,
Right.
Taves,
Crosby is pretty
McDavid,
young, I think, right?
Crosby,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's like when you're on a Southwest flight, you have a lot of options, and
Sorry, keep going with that. I gotta see where this one goes.
you have a lot of options, and we thank you for choosing this captain.
I didn't expect that, Eric. I'll be honest. That was you went the marketing route, and thank you for using Southwest Airlines.
You're welcome.
Proud partner of the San Jose Sharks, by the way. Brodie Brazil, proud partner of the San Jose Sharks. More like employee, but no, I you make a great point, Eric. AJ, how about you? Captaincy, and some would say it's a really big deal. Look, I think leadership is more important than the actual captain, maybe. But this, as much as we can have fun with the conversation, it's serious on the inside. How do you see it?
I'm big time on the Toffoli train for this. I can understand people making the argument of Celebrity is going to get it eventually, so just do it now.
Right.
I look at it from a standpoint of, again, Toffoli's already showing the leadership that you would want to see in your captain. He's here for another 3 seasons based on his contract. That'll get Celebrini to drinking age. And, but there's already a lot of pressure, I would say, on Celebrini because of where he was chosen. I don't think you need to throw the C on him, add that weight to him right now. All that being said, though, if you're going to give it to him eventually, I can understand that argument. But I'm very much, I think Toffoli is driving the bus. That's the route I would go. But it also goes back to something Greer said, where he said something about it being like a sacred honor,
right,
to have the C. But I've also read that it's just a letter,
right? No, it's
so it depends on your point of view.
And we've seen the Sharks play full seasons without like an actual captain. I mean, Logan was absent this year on the ice with the injury and most of last year too, but was officially the captain.
Remember the season there were
four alternates.
6 captains.
Yeah, well, 4 plus there were some alternates. If there were some road and home alternates, is that 14, 13, 14, 14, 15? I'm losing.
No, when was the season, Eric, where it was like Ricci had it for 10 games?
Oh, way back.
03, 04. I think it was Ricci.
The rotating captains.
Alan McCauley.
Alan McCauley, Vinny Donfus, and then they stuck it on Patty from January, and then he took off with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a unique possibility, too. I guess we all need to think outside the box here, whether it's rotating captain, no captain. Maybe we'll just give Randy Hahn. Let's see, Ruzi probably deserves it too. Like, we'll let somebody hold the C until we're ready to give it out. We'll let a broadcaster hold it. I don't know which broadcaster, but
see, I'm also one of the things that Greer said was, like we're not in any rush to hand out the C. I'm kind of quite the opposite in that I would hope that somebody is a captain on day one.
Okay.
Because that's the guy, or I should say game one, because that's the guy who's going to set the tone.
Yeah.
So
look, this is all like, as much as Logan had his day and his moment, and we could all understand it's coming, and I feel so bad for him and all of that, there is a next step of the process here, and he knows it, right? Like, it's part of his process too, and journey to have somebody else get it. So I think it's an interesting conversation. I can't wait to see how it all shakes out. Guys, I really appreciate your time. And I know you're cranking all summer long with more content and shows and draft lotteries and draft parties. And Eric, there is no draft in person, so I don't know where you'll be at the draft party, probably, right?
Probably at the draft party. I mean, unless the ad drop helps me get to LA for the draft. But I mean, we'll find a way. There will definitely be draft coverage all all up to what, June 26, 27?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that.
Yep. All right, Teal Town USA, AJ and Erik, appreciate you both. Talk soon.
Thanks, bud.